Stay tuned for the GSN Digest. Welcome to the GSN Digest, a short program of various features. The show starts now.
Seems only a few days since we've in this chair, but here we are. The Lions are in a fight for their play of lives. We have a few thing on speaking sports. The New Horizons spacecraft is still floating around Pluto looking for more info. We'll tell you what on exploring space. Nostradamus is in the limelight on pieces of history, and Mike reflects on the possibility of singing robots on notations. But first, some disturbing news from Edmonton.
This is the News Watch.
There's a bit of nonsense going on in Edmonton these days. Edmonton police are launching an investigation into recent incidents. One in which 4 pedestrians were struck by a U-Haul truck, and another where an Edmonton police officer was stabbed. Both incidents happened last Saturday evening. An Edmonton man is in custody and police are continuing to search for others who may be involved. We are urging Edmontonians to be vigilant and aware of their surroundings, Edmonton Police Service Chief Rod Knecht said in a 3 a.m. news conference on TE attacks. The Edmonton Eskimos were hosting the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, just blocks where the incident airs happened. Suddenly and without notice and at a high rate of speed, a male driving a white Chevrolet Malibu crashed through the traffic barricades that were separating vehicles from pedestrians. The vehicle struck the officer, sending him flying into the air 15 feet before colliding with the officer's cruiser, again at a high rate of speed. Knecht explained, "I am deeply concerned and outraged by this tragedy. Our thoughts are with those injured, their family and friends and those affected by this senseless act of violence," said Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in a video statement. Edmonton Police, the RCMP, and other public security agencies are investigating and are treating the incidents as acts of terrorism. This is Speaking Sports, a weekly sports feature. As I write this, the BC Lions are 6-8 on the season and in serious danger of missing the playoffs. For the most part they've been going pretty good, but of late they've some crucial mistakes and misread some little things. On top of that, the Saskatchewan Roughriders have caught fire and seem poised to win 3rd place. They have to win at least 2 of their remaining games to salvage their season. 2 games, both on the road against Winnipeg and 2 home games against Edmonton and Toronto. Win against Winnipeg and work on beating the Eskimos under the dome and they might just get into the playoffs. As it stands, the Lions are between a rock and a hard place and should be praying of a little help from another team to help them out.
This is the GSN Digest, a short program of various features.
Boy, do the BC Lions need a little from other teams to get into the CFL playoffs. Yes, the New Horizons spacecraft is still out there. Let's check that out. In 2015 the New Horizons spacecraft made its way to Pluto. Believe it or not, the mission is still active. Even though the craft made it to Pluto, it took 9 years and no doubt cost several millions of dollars, but the craft continues to scour the Pluto system and is still exploring the Kuiper Belt for information about moons and other planet-like objects beyond Pluto. Recently I was reading the NASA website and found out that, even though the main task is done, the craft still hover around in search of information. One of the reasons the ship is still floating out there is at, from time to time, they employ an system that hibernates the ship, shutting most of the ship's equipment but leaves the main computer, radios, other instruments, and of course thermal power supply in order to keep the ship going. Every now and then the ship goes on an autopilot of sorts to keep it on course. The other advantage is so that those working on Earth can rest the craft so they can concentrate on other important projects like planning and preparing for another flyby in January 2019. Testing and planning for that will begin in July 2018. Even though we don't much about New Horizons, the Pluto mission is still in full swing. This is Pieces of History, looking back at the past. There were a lot of interesting people in history. One such person was Nostradamus. Depending what source you read, he was born in December 1503. He was known as a physician and writer but was best known as a seer, and made more than 6,000 prophecies which he put into books and almanacs. Although he made several prophecies, he didn't refer to himself a prophet. Most of his works were based on historic events from ancient historians. Although Nostradamus claimed to predict future events, many of them weren't exact foretelling of the events he was to have made. As well as books of prophecies, he also wrote a couple of medical texts, using information from other noted physicians of the time. He was also a noted healer who was credited with creating a pill to protect against the plague, which in those days was fatal. Nostradamus was a physician, writer, and professional healer, but he was best known for his many predictions, some of which were doomsday prophecies. He died in 1566 of edema. He was 63 years old.
Listening to the GSN Digest, a short program of various features. The show continues.
Nostradamus did make some interesting prediction, but some felt that some were inaccurate, but interesting just the same. Singing robots? Mike has some thoughts on notations.
This is Notations, a music feature.
Some time ago, I wrote an essay which I wrote about the possibility of robots actually singing, not just talking. There are programs that can read text. I use such a program for reading texts I write, then put them through a text-to-speech program. I record the texts and they're the voices of my internet station. It's not that new and there are a lot of internet stations that do just that. I use this because of a speech impairment which was caused by a stroke. I write the texts, put them through the TTS program, fix up the spelling, punctuation, and other aesthetics, then record the talking texts, throw some music background, and presto, a talking spot for the station. Right now, the closest thing to a synthesized singing voice is a device called a talk box. This device is already used by people like Jeff Beck, Joe Walsh, and Peter Frampton. They sing into a mic, then press some keys, and a synthesizer morphs the voice to make it sound like a robot is doing the singing. A 1979 version of Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock came out. It probably turned some stomachs, but it did make you wonder which direction music was headed. Perhaps the day might come when a couple of female-sounding robots will take over for Axl Rose, who is sometimes too drunk to perform and that sometimes touches off riots. Singing robots? Maybe not in our lifetime, but somebody's probably working on it.
Group of dashes. Tune in next time for another edition of Notations.
If those robots can sing, Axl Rose's job might be in jeopardy. Well, that's all for this week. Take care.
That's all for this week. We hope you enjoyed the show. Your feedback is more than welcome. Drop us a line at programs@gsnvancouverbc.ca or visit us at gsnvancouverbc.ca. We're back next week with another edition of the GSN Digest. Thanks for tuning in. So long for now.